Hey guys, it is Jen with Mother Time. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be spending some time in the kitchen doing some cooking. I have some recipes that I love to make all the time and I cannot wait to share these with you. So stay tuned. And if you are new here to my channel, again, welcome. I love sharing home decor, cooking, and DIY here on my channel. So if those are videos you enjoy watching, click that subscribe button below so you never miss a video. Okay, you guys, you know what time it is. Grab yourself a coffee or tea, sit back, relax, and let's get to cooking. First up, I'm going to make the best iced oatmeal cookies. These have been a blog favorite for years. So I'm going to add 2 cups of old-fashioned rolled oats to my little food processor and pulse it just a few times just to break up the oats. Next up, I'm going to cream together 2 sticks of softened butter along with 1 cup of light brown sugar and half a cup of sugar. Next, I'm going to add in 2 large eggs and 1 teaspoon of pure vanilla extract. To my rolled oats, I'm going to add in 2 cups of all-purpose flour, 1 tablespoon of baking powder, a half a teaspoon of baking soda, a half a teaspoon of salt, 2 teaspoons of cinnamon, and a half a teaspoon of ground nutmeg. I'm going to mix it all together and then gradually add it into the wet ingredients. Next, I'm scooping out the dough and placing it on a parchment-lined baking sheet, spacing it about 2 inches apart, and I'm going to bake this in a 350-degree oven for 10 to 12 minutes. Once the cookies are done, I'm going to let them cool on the baking sheet for about 5 minutes before transferring to a wire rack to cool completely. Next, I'm going to make the glaze to dunk the cookies in, so I'm combining 2 cups of confectioner's sugar along with 3 tablespoons of milk. I'm going to mix it all together until it's creamy and combined. Next, I'm going to place my cooling rack on a piece of wax paper so any excess glaze can drip right onto that and I can toss it out. So I have my glaze. Now I'm quickly going to dip the top of my cookie into the glaze and then place it on the cooling rack. I like to dip the top of the cookie really quick into the glaze so you get that really cool crackled look. The glaze will harden as it sits, and these are even better than the store-bought iced oatmeal cookies. Once I've added the glaze to all the cookies, I let them sit out until the glaze is hardened, and then I either put them in an airtight container or cookie jar, or I'm actually using my cake stand today so everybody can grab a yummy cookie along with a tall glass of cold milk. You can even freeze these cookies and then just pull a few out here and there and let them thaw at room temperature if you like. These cookies never last long in my family. Every time I have my cake stand filled with these, they are gone in a day or two. Of course, I had to grab one for myself as well. I'll include a link for the printable recipe in the description below. These soft and chewy iced oatmeal cookies are so delicious and perfect with a tall glass of milk. Next, I'm making my homemade bread in my bread machine. I've been making this for years. It is a family favorite. So I have 1 cup of warm water that is about 110 to 115 degrees, and I'm going to pour that into my bread machine. This bread machine I have had for years. Then I'm going to also add a tablespoon of whole milk along with 2 tablespoons of vegetable oil, 2 tablespoons of light brown sugar, a teaspoon of salt, 3 cups of bread flour. You could also use all-purpose flour, and 2 teaspoons of instant yeast. I just add all of my ingredients in that order into my bread machine, close it up, and then press start, and the bread machine does all the work, kneading, rising, even bakes it. It is so easy, and the end result is a delicious warm loaf of homemade bread. And in 3 hours and 18 minutes, I'll have a warm, delicious loaf of homemade bread ready to serve. I absolutely love using my bread machine. I use it all the time. I love making my pizza dough in my bread machine as well. Let me know in the comments below if you have a bread machine or if you enjoy using your bread machine as well. This bread machine I've had for years. I'll link some similar options in the description below. My favorite way to serve this bread is warm with some butter and drizzle it with honey. It is fabulous. I'll include a link for the full recipe on my blog in the description below. Next up, I'm whipping up a batch of my favorite grain-free granola. I make this all the time. I always have it on hand. It's perfect for snacking and to serve with yogurt as well. So to a large bowl, I'm adding 1.5 cups of chopped walnuts and 1.5 cups of chopped pecans. Then I'm also going to add 1 cup of unsweetened coconut flakes. I'm going to toss it all together and then set it aside, and then to a small bowl I'm going to take 1/4 cup of coconut oil and pop it in the microwave until it melts. Next, I'm going to stir in 1/3 cup of pure maple syrup along with 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Next, I add 1 teaspoon of pure vanilla extract. I'm going to mix it all together, and then I'm going to pour this over the nuts and coconut flakes. Then I sprinkle in a half a teaspoon of ground cinnamon on top and toss it all together. Now I'm going to spread the granola on a large parchment-lined baking sheet, and I'm going to bake it in a 300-degree oven for 35 to 45 minutes, giving it a toss halfway through. And I make sure I get every last bit of all of this yumminess. Once I have it all spread out, now it's ready to pop in the oven. And halfway through, I like to give it a good mix. Once it's done, I let it cool a few minutes on the stove top, and then I'm going to transfer it to a wire rack and give it a good toss. And then I like to stir in some either chocolate chips. I love these Hu no sugar added chocolate chips. They're so delicious. But today I'm going to use some organic blueberries. These are perfect. They're freeze dried, so I'm just going to stir those into the granola as well. And once the granola is cooled completely, I'm going to transfer it to a jar. And I like to use this granola within 2 weeks, but it can also be stored in the freezer for a few months as well. And I love to use the granola in a parfait or on top of yogurt or even with some milk. It is also great just for snacking too. And I will include a link for the full recipe on my blog in the description below. Next up, I'm making Snickerdoodle Protein Balls. I love making oatmeal and protein balls. Every week I make some sort of variation of them to have in the refrigerator for little go-to snacks. These Snickerdoodle Protein Balls are super, super good. So first I am going to take some rolled oats and put them in my food processor and blend it up until I get some oat flour. So I'm just going to keep blending it up for just a couple of minutes, and it will grind the rolled oats until I have the consistency of flour. And just like that, I have some oat flour to use for my protein balls. So I'm going to add that to a bowl along with some protein powder. I'm just using a vanilla protein powder. I'm also going to add some cinnamon along with some salt, and I'm going to mix it all together. Next, I'm going to melt 1/4 cup of coconut oil in the microwave. I'm spraying a measuring cup with a little bit of cooking spray, so when I measure out my honey, it will easily come out. So I have a 1/2 cup of honey, and I'm going to add that along with 3/4 of a cup of almond butter, my coconut oil, as well as a teaspoon of vanilla. Now I'm going to mix all the ingredients together until they're combined. Once it's all mixed together, I'm going to pop this in the freezer for just about 10 or 15 minutes, just until it hardens a little bit so I can roll it into balls. And here is the mixture after being in the freezer for about 15 minutes. Now it is easy to roll into balls. Now you could pop this in the refrigerator instead of the freezer. It's just going to take a little bit longer. And now I'm going to roll it into the balls. I also like to use a piece of wax paper in between each layer, and I also like to store these in the refrigerator to enjoy all week. I like to serve these little protein bites. I actually like to call them bites, but most people know them as protein balls. But I like to serve these bites or balls, whatever you like to refer to them as, on what I like to call snack plates. So I make these snack plates all the time for myself and my family. So I add some apple slices or whatever fruit I have on hand. Sometimes I do berries, and then I add a few of the protein bites along with something else. Sometimes I'll do cheese, or I'll do pretzels, or whatever I have on hand to just make a really yummy snack plate. These are so easy and delicious, and again, I like to store them in the refrigerator so we can enjoy them all week. I'll include a link for the full recipe on the blog in the description below. And last up, I'm going to make the best chocolate chip cookies. This has been my go-to recipe for years. This recipe is on the blog, so I'll have a link for it in the description below. These are so easy, and I'm also going to show you how you can freeze the dough as well. I'm going to start by melting 2 sticks of butter, and then to my stand mixer, I'm adding 3/4 of a cup of sugar along with 3/4 cups of light brown sugar. I'm going to add my melted butter, and I'm going to mix it all together. Next, I'm going to add in 1 teaspoon of pure vanilla extract and 2 large eggs. Next, I'm going to add in 2 3/4 cup all-purpose flour, 1 teaspoon of baking soda, and 1 teaspoon of salt. I'm going to mix everything together until it's combined, and then stir in 1 11-ounce bag of semi-sweet chocolate chips. Now I'm going to scoop out the cookie dough and place it on a parchment-lined baking sheet and bake this in the oven at 350 degrees for about 12 minutes. And since my family loves these chocolate chip cookies, I like to store some of the cookie dough in the freezer so I always have it on hand. So I am just scooping out the dough and then rolling it into balls and placing it on a parchment lined baking sheet. Then I'm going to place the baking sheet in the freezer for about an hour until the balls have hardened. Once the dough has hardened, I'm going to get out a large gallon-sized freezer bag and label it. I also like to place a date on it as well as an expiration date. These don't last very long, but I always like to write it on there just in case, and I like to use the dough within 3 months. Once I add all the dough into the bag, I'm going to store this in the freezer, and then to bake, I just place these on a cookie sheet lined with parchment paper. I bake them from frozen at 350 degrees, and I just add a couple minutes more onto the baking time. And the cookies that were in the oven, I let cool on the baking sheet for about 5 minutes, and then I'm going to transfer them to my cooling rack to cool completely. My family loves these chocolate chip cookies. I make them several times a week. That's why I love having the cookie dough on hand as well. And I love serving these with a tall glass of milk. And I will include a link for the full recipe on my blog in the description below. Okay, you guys, that is all for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. Give it a big thumbs up if you did, and let me know in the comments below what your favorite recipe was. And for daily decor and DIY inspo, as well as lots of behind the scenes and stories, make sure you're following me on my Facebook or Instagram page at Mother Time. Thank you so much for spending time with me here today, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye, guys.